Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista Series 6, The Cow in the Room. I'm Ian Collins, and this is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. General rule of thumb, it's the same all the time. If it's green, it is in. And in fact, if it's green, it might even be in your diary, Dale, which, of course, seems to get more, is the word copious? By the week. Yeah, always Ram doing something. You became the editor of the Times or something this week, something crazy like that. Tell us more.
No,
I
actually
exaggerate.
Yeah, slightly. So, a few things have happened this week. There is a Times element to it, but I just start with my good friend. What's his name? He's so good, such a good friend. I can't remember his name. Paul Staines from Guido Fawkes.
Yeah.
Because this week there's a fabulous story. The week kind of starts for me with this legal case that ended in the High Court this week, the Ecotricity case. You probably remember it. A couple of high-profile footballers' wives battling out in a legal case.
Beautiful.
Libel case, in fact. Yeah, and this week the judge awarded £1.4 million of costs in favour of the winner. Now, I've got to get it right, Colleen Rooney.
Yeah.
And Rebecca Vardy has to pay it, right? And it just landed at the same day as Paul Staines, a.k.a. Guido Fawkes, agreed to pay my costs in my libel case against him of like 114 grand, much smaller sum of money, but he'd been boasting that it only cost him 10 grand. That was in damages. And I've sent that to Gaza like I like to do because it was a Gazan-related slander. And anyway, if you add it all up, the 10 grand, the 114 grand, his own costs as well, it's a £250,000 bill. And yet he boasts he didn't have to apologise. And I'm like, well, yeah, you didn't have to apologise, but blimey, it might have been cheaper if you had.
Well, it would have been cheaper, just to begin with, to go, we royally screwed this up. Let's just clarify it now. Yeah. Sorry, Dale. And, it's not in your kind of character to just blatantly pursue something spitefully. You'd have kind of let
said,
it
hey, fair play, I would have said.
They dug their heels in, didn't they? That was the problem.
Mm-hmm. And the Telegraph really last week gave a good example of how to do that in the right way. They put the story up and took it down the same day and went, WTF have we done here? And, published an apology and all that kind of stuff. Case closed. That's all it would have taken. But Paul Staines, I think he took against me. I think, I'm the left to his right. And so he thought, he was going to dig in. And he did dig in. And that's what it cost him. And who cares? But it landed on the same day as that Agatha Christie story, which was a really interesting story if you were following it at the time.
And that whole libel area isn't completely over, Dale. There's still more to come in that respect.
Yeah, a couple of loose ends, let's say.
Yeah, we will keep you posted. Tell us about the Times then.
Oh yeah, opportunity came in earlier in the week to write an op-ed for the Times. We've got a supplement out on Friday, I've talked about heat pumps before. This is what it's about. The hideous cost of a national program, the impracticalities, the amount of time it will take, the wastefulness, the fact that a lot of people's bills are going to go up. All of these things that Johnson didn't even bother with when he came up with this idea that we'd all have a heat pump and he would force us all to have one by banning the sale of new gas boilers around 2030 or something like that. I think it's a big deal because Labour needs to abandon Johnson's old plan. It wasn't much of a plan and make their own. And that's what I'm going to write about.
And let's go back to the other op-ed. You're op-edding all over the place at the moment, Dale, because I want to find out more about the cartoon bit.
The cartoon is the funny part, right? It's my favourite part. It's Nigel Farage as a donkey with a rosette being pinned on his ass that says Nexit. And Nexit is the key word. I've written this op-ed about what he's doing now, his attacks on net zero, which have been quite prominent in the last few weeks. His blaming of the high price of energy on green energy and how we can't afford net zero and all that kind of stuff. Has all the hallmarks of his Brexit campaign. And I wrote an op-ed about that and called it Nexit. Said this was it's about. He's a one-trick pony trying to produce a sequel, and this sequel is called Nexit. I'm hoping to kind of label this anti-net zero campaign with the word Nexit and...
no one's really... Because what's going to happen now that you've said it, lots of people are going to start using the word Nexit, right?
I hope so. Oh, I should explain. It means Britain's exit from net zero.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't need explaining. We could hope not.
There might be somebody at the back who's a little sleepy, Dale, who didn't quite pick up on it. I don't know. You never know who's listening. But it will get picked up, is my point.
Yeah, I hope so. And, people have said to me, but Reform might use it. And I say, well, let them, because I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, actually, because the economic impact of Brexit was one thing, and it was big. But the economic impact of Nexit will make that look like a paper cut. And he deserves to be tarred with this brush, right? He's the architect beyond more than anybody else of Brexit. and the harm that it's done for us.
And the architect of Nexit, and this is really interesting, what's happened in the last couple of weeks is you could say Donald Trump is right up there. But there's been I suppose the laws of unintended consequences have reached the Oval Office.
Yeah, I like that link. It's a very good one. So this is not a news article, but what I'm seeing in the news is exactly that. It's like Donald Trump is a force for good. First off, we had Mark Carney winning the election in Canada, and his party were like well behind in the polls before Donald Trump started attacking Canada and all of that kind of stuff. And then this week, we had the Australian Labor Party winning from the same position, being behind in the polls. But their opponents were pro-Trump and they were anti-Trump. And it swung the election for them. And then as a consequence of that, they've just come out with an 80% green energy plan by 2030, which is like really close to what we have over here with our Labour government, which is 100%. So you've got 2 elections and a major green energy target in Australia, our favourite country, right? The land of high carbon footprints, right?
Yeah, I mean, they almost invented poisoning people. I mean, they were just at it. They couldn't stop themselves. But now there's a sort of reverse ferret on that. It's interesting that the man who was meant to win, who was penciled in to win the Australian election, actually lost his seat.
Yes, he did.
And in Canada, the Conservatives, who they got wiped out a number of years ago, of course, and they were penciled in to win, not just win, but win absolutely. This was going to be landslide territory. That didn't happen, and the Conservative leader discombobulated in the count and apparently vomited up his own ribcage.
That sounds hideous. And we've got the Donald to thank for all of this. 2 elections.
And it's all down to Donald Trump.
2 elections so far and a mad green energy, not mad, but a fabulous green energy target for Australia. And of course, only a couple of weeks ago, he had made fracking in the US uneconomic. I mean, what's he going to do next?
Yeah. Life is full of strange and sometimes sweet surprises, Dale. There you go. So you will be championing Donald Trump for the rest of time if this pattern continues.
Well, the rest of his time anyway. We'll see.
Yeah, however long that is. He said he's not going to serve he talked about serving a 3rd term, didn't he? He was kind of teasing this idea that, it sounds like a good, I might be able to do it, get a new baseball cap with 3 on it or something. And apparently he's now ruled that out, owing to the fact that I think he'll be 507 by the time he would start the 3rd term.
But I think it doesn't matter what he says. That isn't a guide to what he's going to do or what he thinks is true or not. So,
well, let's look at China as well, because their president is fairly contrasting with what's going on with the White House.
And that's the other thing that Donald Trump has done, actually. We missed that off the list. He's put China on a podium. We always face this what about China question, and, elements of our media and politics over here are always like, oh, why should we bother? China's this, China's that, and that kind of stuff. And of course, there's been a lot of suspicion about China and tech, and should we allow it into our country, and all this kind of China phobia. Donald Trump has given China a platform to be actually the dependable, responsible kind of adults in the room globally that the United States used to be seen as. They're saying, look, we're going to carry on with our green targets. We're going to carry on investing in industry and stuff like that. We are a dependable partner for trade. Never mind that lot. It's incredible. He's done so much. Yeah. I want to say so much harm, but he's actually done good, because I don't think China is overall a bad country. And we talked before about their role in net zero and manufacturing our way to net zero and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, there's a lot looks good about China in the last few weeks.
Here's a question from Andy Bezic on Facebook, who says, when are we going to get local grids where people who produce renewable energy give to the community and anyone living in a community takes what they need? Little need for the American-owned national grid. We need local grids.
Well, I can't answer that. I mean, we already have local grids. They just don't work that way. Our system doesn't allow that kind of transferring of power free from one person to another.
It's a nice kind of cooperative idea, but I guess the practicalities are probably pretty damn huge, I would guess.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, the practicalities of energy trading are hideous. And that's, as long as we don't get... No, I don't want to talk about zonal pricing. That would just make it even worse.
Don't get into zonal pricing.
12 times worse.
We're going to have a zone off at some point. This comes in from Philip R. Smith Lawrence on Facebook. This is referenced Nigel Farage's Nexit post. Farage is back and more dangerous than before. It says, do you have any renewable energy projects currently in planning in the 10 councils that Reform UK now run?
Well, that is a good question.
That's a great question.
I don't know the answer. I haven't looked, but I might. I might look now or ask somebody else to look. I mean, I've seen them say that they're going to do whatever they can to block renewable energy projects, and I mean, councils have a degree of power. A degree. I mean, they're county councils, I think, that they're running. I'm not sure if were the district elections as well?
County councils,
Yeah. So mostly planning is with the district council for renewable energy, or it's with the government for a really big project. I'm not sure the county has much of a say in that. In which case,
it's an empty boast, a lot of those councillors, and in fairness, it would apply to any party, but you know, a lot of what you might promise nationally, you can't necessarily do locally. You know, you don't have that authority as a county councillor.
That's true. I think it's an empty boast, you know. And like the flag thing is suggested, banning all those flags, you know, if it's not English or Scottish or Welsh or something, they're just banning flags in the councils. Andrea Jenkin, the new mayor up there somewhere, I mean, my word, what kind of outcome is that? She says she's interested in how well the Musk's Doge thing might work over here for a county council. And I just can't believe anybody would say that. The best thing, maybe the best part of all of this, we've just like lent into reform here, is that Farage is against home working. He says he's not going to allow it at councils. And meanwhile, Reform put out an advert for some new people and said they could work from home.
Yeah, I was trying to work that out. I thought I'd missed something when I read the ad. I thought, that can't be right. Can you never work from home? Sometimes work from home. I don't know what the hell's going on.
But they're offering home working to Reform staff while saying, oh, councils and home working is a bad thing. We're going to ban it. And actually, in a similar way, they're anti-net zero and anti-solar power. Richard Tice is chief executive of a company that invests in solar panels and boasts about the carbon savings.
He does have an electric car as well.
He's secretly one of us. I'm out of the closet, Richard.
Well, I think he would. I think he's more. I don't know if the word is moderate, but I think he is more understanding of the arguments that you put forward. You've done, you know, interviews, and he's been around. I know you've also had your battles. We won't go there at the moment, but I get the sense that he understands where you're coming from and doesn't fundamentally disagree with the principle of cleaner, more efficient energy. I guess the change is how you get there and how fast, maybe. I can't speak for Richard.
No, understood. Yeah, I mean, I've had the same conversation with Farage as well, you know, and he's very positive about it. He's like, well, if that's all true, I'm like on board. And then, do you know what? I think it's just about political convenience. That's what's happening right now with Reform. Being anti-net zero, anti-green energy is just a performance in pursuit of votes. That's all it is.
And connected, clean energy will be critical to winning the AI race with China. There's a headline.
Yeah, it's quite funny, isn't it? How like there's this confluence of things. You've got green energy, you've got net zero, you've got trade wars and Trump's, you know, competitiveness with China. You've got AI and all of the ripples that's causing, and it's like a perfect storm right in the middle. We need bucket loads of green energy, according to some US senator or something. Bucket loads the US needs in order to be able to compete with China, because AI data centers just use ginormous amounts of power. And so Trump's got a bit of a problem, really. He's against green energy, but he needs what green energy can bring to allow him to compete with China on AI.
Yeah, because you don't. It's one of those things. It's a bit like Bitcoin, isn't it? And mining online. That I didn't know any of it. The whole Bitcoin thing, I've no idea how it works. I don't even know what it really means. And actually, I don't think anybody does, to be honest. But people just smile politely, nod their head, and everyone assumes the next bloke knows more than they do, and then away they go. It's one of those moments. But either way, what I didn't realize is it takes thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of acres of computer generation to get this thing working, and because you've got to mine it, as in mine deep into the kind of, I don't know, the inner core of computer world or whatever the hell it is.
Well, so they're using computers to solve complex equations and problems. And it uses a massive amount of computing power. People are building data centers for this in the US right now. I read an article this week about it, and they're building them next to old gas-fired power stations, which they're firing back up, or they're buying wind farms nearby in order to power them. They're incredibly power hungry because there's just a warehouse full of computers all working away on this mathematical problem. And the first person to crack the code gets given a bucket load of crypto, which is worth, a stupid sum of money. And then I don't actually know what they achieved by cracking the code. That's the bit that nobody ever says. But
that's what I mean. Nobody knows.
Where's the value in it? You have these armies of computers cracking codes for somebody, whoever that is, I don't know, that gives them this mythical digital currency that's worth
and what do you do with that?
Money.
You have a bucket of crypto, as you say. I like the idea that it's in a bucket. That's just a great image. And it's kind of like, it's a sort of a kind of financial digital matrix. No one really knows anything about it. It could be described, as my old Nan would say, it sounds like bullshit to me.
I think that's fair. I don't understand the economic basis of it, right? Because these things are worth loads of money now, and somebody's winning them. But what are they delivering to the person that's giving them the crypto coins? Beyond me. Yeah. Never mind. But
you not got it. You're carrying crypto, as the phrase goes, Dale. You got some crypto.
But I saw the French police this week raided a house in France. There's been a spate of kidnappings of crypto millionaires, and they rescued a guy that had his fingers chopped off as part of torture to get presumably the passcode to his crypto fortune.
Wow.
And that's happening in France.
That's a bit rubbish, isn't it? Won't be punching in any numbers in the future, I'm guessing. But although,
because in some circles they cut the finger off to scan it, don't they? But in this case, they were cutting it off to get his code.
Yeah. Still, well, hopefully, he still has his toes. But I don't know that either for a fact. Let's talk about eating white meat. Often talked about that. Red meat, stay away from red meat, very, very bad. But if you're going to eat meat, stick to chicken and stuff because it's white and hasn't got all the nasties in it. But
it's almost a reform story, isn't it? Almost. And there's been a big pivot away from red meat in the last 10 years, 30% drop in consumption in our country. And it's because I think of all of the news about how bad it is for us. And it's been a good thing, but it has been a pivot towards white meat and the rise of mega farms of chickens and the abhorrent conditions and all of that kind of stuff, and the pollution that is choking up our rivers. Now it turns out that's also killing us. So it's a long-term study. I think it was 20 years, maybe even, 500 participants. And basically the conclusion anyway was if you eat 300 grams of chicken or more a week instead of 100, then you've got a 30% greater chance of dying of cancer or heart problems. And double the chance of dying of gastrointestinal cancers. Double the chance. So researchers say we don't know exactly why, but clearly eating more chicken than not is a big health risk, and they think it's probably about the hormones and the antibiotics that are pumped into these chickens in factory farming. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, just maybe stay away from that stuff. That might be.
Yes.
That might be the best advice, but I mean, based on everything you said, you just frightened the bejesus out of me, Dale.
Really? You're a big chicken eater?
No, not anymore. I used to be a sponsor of the Colonel's Parlour back in the day. He was
a platinum member.
Platinum member, yeah. Always walking out with a gold-encrusted bucket. Here's full of crypto and chicken. Here's a question that comes from Richard on LinkedIn. This is a reference a post about Tony Blair's comments. We talked about it last week that net zero was doomed to fail, and your post saying that Blair was talking nonsense. Richard says, Dale, remove the political bias and stick with engineering facts. Could you explain how we prevent the same shutdown of the UK network that Spain suffered last week without bulk power? I await your technically led response. I think he's challenging you to a thorough answer, Dale Vince.
Yeah, and I'm up for it. I'm up for the challenge. I'm not sure what he means by bulk power. Without bulk power, we already have bulk power. But my first answer really is to say, I'll tell you how we can prevent it happening over here when we know what caused it. Because there's no sign that it was caused by renewable energy or by net zero policies. I think it's a technical failure somewhere. the best thesis I read about it was that there was a vulnerability somewhere in the grid. It can happen to any grid anywhere. I don't know. But I don't think we've seen the final word on what caused it. But what I do know is that the people rushing to judge net zero and green energy were just doing it for their own purposes. It's not a problem. That's not the problem.
Stephen Wally on X says, what is the average lifespan and life cycle cost of solar panels in the UK? I don't know if you know the answer to that, but I'm just throwing it to you.
Yeah, it's fair. Look, I think solar panels will go on for a very long time. What happens is the amount of power they put out kind of degrades on a graph. You can see it doing that. And so, a typical life cycle might be considered to be 20 or 25 years. Certainly for a windmill, it's 20 to 25 years as well. My first windmill up the road just there is going to be 30 in a couple of years' time. It's doing rather well, I would say.
Wow.
In terms of life cycle costs, I'm not quite sure what that means, whether that's in carbon or what it is, because you buy this stuff up front and then it makes you electricity, which has a value for any number of years. So in terms of carbon cost, what I can say is that a windmill will repay its carbon footprint. The entire carbon cost of manufacture, delivery, installation will be repaid within 6 to 12 months. And then the rest of the 19 and a half or 24 and a half years of operation is free, carbon-free energy. Solar panels take a little bit longer. Maybe it's 1 year, 2 years, something like that. I'm not really sure. But it's tiny. It's tiny.
Should we do some X-rated corner, Dale?
Yeah, I need a bit of light relief.
These are, for the uninitiated, these are people who are not, let's just say they're not super fans of Dale. So, and this is some of what
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. I think someone really liked me, actually, quite simply.
Well, indeed, because they're always listening and paying attention and responding to stuff.
They look at my haircut, they look at the clothes I wear. And,
They love all of that. They love the gold jacket. They're totally. They're probably buying some of that stuff, sourcing it as we speak. Well, Lee Shuttlewood says, and this is a post about Drax and biomass farms marking their own homework. Lee says, how many trees and hedges have been, I don't know whether that's grubbed or grubbed out of the way for windmills and solar panels? Essentially, how much countryside do you have to destroy to make solar panels and windmills?
But it almost just doesn't happen. Cutting down trees for windmills or solar panels, what you need for both of those things is an open field, an open aspect. Certainly in terms of wind, you want some, you want the wind to be able to get to you, and very rarely has anybody built windmills in a forest. Usually it's an open field. Same with solar panels, and it wouldn't make sense, would it? Why go to all that trouble when we've got so many open fields?
Sir Adrian of Gammonland, MBE, says, I would trust Farage over you any day. Who is making money out of the climax? Who is making money out of the climate hoax? You or Farage? Run along now, says Sir Adrian of Gammonland. There you go. You've sort of been told there, Dale.
Yeah, I like the idea of a climax crisis. Who is making money? Well, me and Richard Tice, I would say. He's an investor in solar panels. So, and I'm, it's a joke question, but here's an answer that's not a complete joke. Parts of the Reform Party, the deputy leader of the Reform Party is making money out of the climate crisis.
And here's one from Lord Talbot on X, a post that said Farage is right about the problems but wrong about the causes. Yeah. Bianca the grifter that makes a fortune from green subsidies has to pretend that green isn't the problem. Do you know what that question even means?
Yeah, I do, because at the heart of my Nexit op-ed about Farage was this proposition that he's right to talk about high energy prices. He's wrong to blame it on green energy. And he's right to talk about net zero, but he's wrong to say we can't afford to do it. And so he's got the right problems, but the wrong answers. That was at the heart of the post. So that's what he's saying. Bianca, that's obviously a reference to a previous compliment from X-Rated Corner.
I see. Yeah.
Remember that one?
I just wondered whether, I didn't know whether Bianca was a kind of a buzzword or maybe a safe word.
It is now. It's my nickname now.
Didn't know what it meant. There's a bit of kind of terminology in this world that I hadn't yet picked up, which would have disappointed me no end.
Oh, but there wasn't a question there, was there? We didn't miss anything, did we?
No, there was nothing there other than that statement. Dale, that is, we are done and out of here for this.
Awesome. Yeah.
But of course, we are back in a week's time. You can follow Dale on social media, twitter.com or x.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince, and on TikTok too.
And the Times and the Telegraph.
and in the Telegraph and in the Times and in various other publications. Could be Newsnight, Channel 4 might appear there. Could be Talk Radio, Talk TV. You never know when Dale's going to pop up.
I like being there. LBC, that's fun. I think I'm doing that. Anyway, I think I'm doing it next week. But I am on a train ride next week, starting Thursday, so I'll get one more episode in. And then I'm going to find somewhere to record an episode, not in Bulgaria, but I don't know, Berlin or Croatia. It's one of the two.
So you're just trying to make me feel bad now, aren't you?
Yeah, always.
Nothing wrong with that. I'll have to take that on the chin, won't I?
I hope I don't fail to do that either. If I
no failure there whatsoever.
Can't fail.
And of course, this podcast is out every Friday morning at 8 o'clock. Tell everybody you know of its existence.